Hello everyone, it is Tuesday today, and today I'm sitting down with Siren, who is the lead writer for Fallout London. I'm pleased to have you here. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic Tuesday. I was just playing some Commonwealth Responders mod, and now I'm here.
That's a lie because it's saying right now on Discord that you are playing the Garden of Eden creation kit.
I am running two programs at once.
All right, well I'll take the compliment. Sure thing. Yeah. So got some questions for you. First up, what is it that got you into modding?
My tragic backstory. So, it all happened during a dark and stormy 2020. I had actually gotten quite sick, not with COVID. I couldn't work due to it, and my classes had ended for this semester. And I lost contact with a lot of my friends due to my deteriorating condition, and ended my relationship of 2 years. So, with all that free time on my hands, I needed a distraction. Fallout New Vegas is like my favorite game of all time, so I decided to mod it. I found I could really relate to the character Joshua Graham from the Honest Hearts DLC, and I wanted to make a mod about him. Thus, the Joshua Graham romance mod was born.
Right.
I spent like literally that's how it started. I spent like 2 weeks learning Papyrus and figuring out how the game's engine worked, making little mods to practice, and eventually I built up to making Zion's Fire. So yeah, I've been modding since like June of 2020. Although like when I was younger, like middle school age, I'd make little games on Scratch and I played around with retexturing in The Sims, but like nothing formal like I do now.
No, okay. I've never played Fallout New Vegas, so I'm not very sure who Joshua Graham is. I'm in the unknown about all that stuff, but I mean, I do know that you got some flack about these or about this romance mod in particular. Like, can you explain why it's like looked down upon, or why they think it's a bad thing? Like, I don't see why it's a bad thing, but some other people did. Like, do you know the reason why?
I mean, I can definitely, because you sent me your list of questions, I can get into this later because it's part of like a bigger thing, but for the most part, my reception was overwhelmingly positive. But there were some people who were very uncomfortable with the fact that a woman was making mods, and they accused me of quote unquote feminizing their game.
What?
And
I'm sorry, that just sounds like really dumb. Like, if you look at the Nexus and you just look at the pictures that like or screenshots that people are taking, like, it seems that that's all they do. Like, how is it that if you are making a mod, it's suddenly feminizing a game? That just sounds stupid to me.
exactly.
Well, yeah. So yeah, you've been working on Fallout London now. That's your current project. How long ago did you join Fallout London?
So I actually joined Fallout London and Fallout Miami around the same time. It was, I think, late June, early July of 2020. And I do smaller tasks for Miami, and then I slowly kind of like rose to the ranks of London. Like around September, I became co-lead writer, and then by January of this year, I became the head writer. It was more like due to my experience with the creation kit and the Garden of Eden creation kit and understanding the game's engine, I brought a sort of technical aspect to the writing team. Generally, when most people go into writing, they don't know the technical aspect of how the game actually works, so it's difficult to understand the limitations of the engine. But I came in with that sort of technical experience that gave me a bit of an edge. So I first got on the scene in the first place due to my own work, as you may know. So I made Zion's Fire, the Joshua Graham romance mod for New Vegas, and that was my first mod. And my second was a Cyber Affair, which was a content restoration mod, again for New Vegas, and that one was like #1 on trending for like 2 weeks.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's really nice. Especially if it's only like your second mod and it does so well. I can only imagine that must have felt like really good.
It was very confusing because I still run into people now who are like, oh yeah, I have your mod in my load order. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, real talk, I met a guy on Tinder, right? And we were talking, and he was like, what mods have you made for Fallout? And I was like, I told him, and he was like, oh my god, my friend plays that mod. And I was like, what? This is starting to affect my personal life.
So you get recognized for your mods, then.
Yeah, surprisingly, when you think about the kind of stuff I make, like I genuinely am surprised.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, you worked on some romance mods for New Vegas. Why not make some for Fallout 4, for example?
Honestly, I could, but I don't just make romance mods. Like, my first one was, my second one was restored cut content. I
Yeah.
restored the Black Widow route that allows you to seduce Mr. House in order to kill him while not setting off the Securitrons. And yes, Obsidian actually intended for this. This is not just me making this up. That was a real thing. So right now I'm working on a restoration mod that restores the cut content, the cut ending to the Old World Blues DLC. At some point, I'm going to have to learn to code for Fallout 4 as Prilladog, the project lead of Fallout London, wants me to move to the implementation team after my job as a writer is finished. So when I have more time, I'm going to get some practice in. So I don't know if I'll really have time to work on my own stuff for Fallout 4, although I'd like to. But I'm also a shoddy level designer, so don't know if that's going to happen. But yeah, in terms of Fallout London, I'm going to have to actually be a scripter. So
Yeah, because I was about to ask, because you did the scripting for your previous mods. Why did you turn to writing instead of like doing the scripting for Fallout London?
I don't know. Like, this really just happened. Like, I joined a network called the Creators Network, which has a couple thousand people in it, and it's all people like YouTubers, mod authors, voice actors, basically anyone who remotely has anything to do with modding in the Fallout community and even the Skyrim community. And I joined that in June 2020. And immediately after I joined, they're like, here's an application to fill out so we get an idea of your education and skill set and what you'd be willing to do. And I knew nothing about big modding projects. I only knew about individual mods. I didn't know that there are people like Fallout Miami and Fallout London who are making like these huge mods that are basically a standalone game. So I filled out this application. I put down my education. I'm a film and television major at NYU, graduating this month. And I wrote down like my skill set, all my job offers, like I work in film and media, and then within 5 minutes of sending in my application, I get a message from the guy who runs the Creators Network, and he says, Fallout Miami has formally requested that you submit an application to their website, and the head writer of Fallout London would like to speak to you and interview you. And I was just sitting there like, what? It's been 5 minutes.
All right, well, so things went kind of fast. So,
yeah.
So how did you get into the writing itself? Like, did that come to be because of the education, or was it like, did it start out as a hobby? How did that come to be?
Oh, this is actually an interesting story, and one that I'm worried might sound very conceited, but I promise this is not just me embellishing. This is genuinely my childhood. I was definitely a weird kid. I had savantism, which is like when you're especially gifted in one particular area. And my childhood was very weird. So I started out like in kindergarten, and I was very much behind every other kid. Like I could barely spell the word was, which is like 3 letters. And I almost got held back in kindergarten when I was 5.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. And then when I was 8 years old, something kind of like snapped, and I could suddenly like read and write at a high school level. Like they got me tested and everything, and like I was literally writing at the level of like a 16-year-old at age 8. It was pretty whack. And that sort of just continued and got like to be more intense as I got older. And then like weird things like that would happen for me. Like when I was 11, something snapped and I went from being an F student in math and being in special ed for math to being at the top of my class in math. Like it was very strange phenomena. And that kind of carried over. Like when I was in high school and I was 16, I wrote a whole novel. And then I got this award from the Rochester Institute of Technology for Creativity and Innovation. They actually gave me like a medal. And it just kind of spiraled from there. And I submitted some writing to NYU when I first applied. I didn't think I'd ever get in because they have like a 3.3% acceptance rate for their film program and are considered to be like one of the best in the world. So I thought like, there's no chance of me getting in. Like I suck. And my grades were good, but they weren't like fantastic. And But I told my dad one day, I was like, should I just apply to them for like shits and giggles? And he was like, yeah, I mean, with their reputations, it's worth it. And we were like, let's see how hard they reject me. And then I got a letter of acceptance from them. And I was like, oh, well, they're going to regret this.
Okay. So that's how you got into writing. Basically.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Now, of course, you're a writer for Fallout London. You start out as just a writer, but right now you're basically running the whole writing department. What is that like? What is it like running such a vital department within a modding community or a modding project? I mean.
Oh boy, Tuesday. It has its ups and downs. For one, I really like management. I thrive in an environment where I get to be in command. I'm way more capable of giving orders than I am following them. According to my elementary school report card, where I failed in the following directions category, I'm not good at comprehension or following directions. But it's a lot to keep track of. Like, in addition to having an actual job, being a university student, directing a film, and co-producing a documentary, it basically takes up all of my free time. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, as the team grows bigger, I have to stay on top of what everyone is doing at all times and assign them tasks. There's hardly any time for me to actually write.
No, so basically it's no writing anymore. It's mainly just managing the people who are going to do the writing for you in a way.
Right, and that was something I was definitely warned about by people who have previously served as heads of department, not necessarily for writing, but in general, which is that you're actually doing a lot less of what you're skilled at, and it's actually counterproductive because you were promoted to the role because you were the most competent, and then you're now not doing the job you were most competent for because you're managing all the other people. So it's kind of like, I still write, it just takes me a lot longer to get to it, because when I actually have the time to work on the mod, I'm managing everyone else. So it definitely is like a balancing act.
So can you tell me something that you like, and then something you dislike about running the writing department?
Efficiency is key. I love efficiency. I try to run my department as efficiently as possible. I like to see things get done in a timely manner. I set timelines and agendas for each quarter and have goals for my team by the end of each month. As for what I dislike, it's a lot of work. Like, I'm the kind of person where my brain never really shuts off, but at the same time, the stress with such a big workload gets to you eventually.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, obviously, you're from America, you're an American, and the mod is about London. What is your process to write British dialogue? Because obviously, like British slang, it doesn't really come all that natural in a way.
Right.
So how do you make this work?
So a couple interesting things about that is, for one, we do have our team in general is majority British, and however, the three most senior members of the writing team, myself included, are American. So what we do is when we write something, we tell our writers who are not British, write it as you would for a generic English speaker. Like, for me, write it as I would for someone who's American, and then pass it over to someone who's British, and they'll make a pass through of it and make sure that the vernacular is correct. Because when we've had some writers who weren't British try to write in British slang, despite how much they study our vocabulary document, it still sounds unnatural. And I've actually had people come at me, like when I did my recent interview with tk-mantis, to hear we pronounce boroughs, apparently it's borough in like British or something, but
right, yeah.
And here we say borough. Like, when I talk about the boroughs of New York, I say borough. But people were like really on top of me, saying like, God damn it, it's not borough, it's borough. And I was just like, I am not British. And you
just
know,
like Bermondsey.
Oh my god, Prill will never let that go. And the thing is, like, I lived in London for like 4 months, and yes, London is not representative of the entire United Kingdom. But as some people have criticized when we were talking, and I was like, I realized this, but I don't know, people got really incensed over littlest things, and I was just like, I never claimed this, but okay. And so, like, I'm not even saying my pronunciation of borough is correct, I'm just saying that's how I say it because I am American. Yeah. And I don't even know why this is a topic I have to debate.
But I can imagine.
Yeah, like, it's just, I honestly don't think it's a problem. I mean, we have people doing pass-throughs to make sure everything sounds authentic. Also, we got a lot of criticism about the little clip we put in TK's video, but I actually didn't even know that clip existed because that was made way before I ever came on the team, so I was not even responsible for that dialogue, and some people loved it, saying that it sounded exactly like it sounded so realistic, but other people were saying, oh, this is just what an American would think of a British sounding person. I was like, I did not even write this.
Wait, what clip are we talking about here?
It was with a plane going down, and then it was with this guy speaking to... Yeah, so I actually didn't even write that.
What's his name? Nick Defense or something.
Yeah, that's a very old... that wasn't even written in proper dialogue format. That's very old. It was, like, way before I came on the project.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know, like, who wrote that, to be honest. So, like, I don't even know whether I feel it is good or not. I have no opinions on it. It just is what it is. I actually did not know that clip even existed. So, to be quite honest, yeah, like, apart from all the controversy of, like, oh my god, the head writer is American, like, we actually do, British-size, as I say it, our dialogue.
Yeah, because a lot of new writers that are joining right now are also from America.
Oh, no, they're all British except for one.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but you did say in like, what, a couple minutes back that, like, the three main writers, or, like, the heads of department of the writing team, they're all American, correct?
Yeah, that's me, Ranger Ridiculous, who's the creative director, and then there's, this who doesn't have a title, but he's, like, one of our longest standing writers and has, like an unofficial seniority, pretty much.
Right, yeah, my question was, like, if an American writer does join, or actually any writer for that fact, what is it that you have them do first, kind of to break the ice, or to get them introduced to Fallout London?
So the first thing I do is I give them I ask them for a portfolio. I don't let anyone through without a portfolio, especially after the Frontier, like, we have to be really careful. And I vet that, and if their portfolio is good, then I give them a sample assignment to do, like a sample side quest. And if they can actually follow, and I won't hold them to, like, knowing our lore or anything. Like, I just say, write your own side quest, do your own thing with your own lore in a Fallout fashion. And if their writing is solid, I interview them over the phone. And if that goes well, then I bring them in. So usually what I do is I will invite them to our shared Google Drive where all of our information is, and then I bring them on our Trello, which is how we keep track of where all of our tasks are, and I assign them their first task, and then I also basically, like, invite them to introduce themselves to the team, whether that be over voice chat or in our developers lobby, and then I kind of, I don't want to say tutor, but I kind of instruct them in how stages and objectives work and how everything sort of functions. I have a whole folder in our shared Google Drive, which is called Guides for New Writers, and it basically has an explanation for every single thing they need to do and, like, templates for them to use.
Right. So what would you say is the most difficult part of being a writer for Fallout London? Whether that be if you're new or a little bit more experienced over the last few months. What is the most difficult part of, like, being and remaining a writer for Fallout London?
To be honest, other than what I've already said, nothing really. Like, what really motivates me to work is that I love our team. Like, they're some of the coolest people I've ever met, and we all get along really well. It's like a family in voice chat. I think I'd actually be genuinely devastated if we all just went our own way and stopped working on the mod.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Like, that's something I was worrying about, like, what happens when the mod is done? Is there gonna be something else, something new? Or is it just, like, everyone parts ways and say goodbye, or I'll be on tomorrow, and they never do, you know?
Like, I think about that as well. Like, I was FaceTiming with Roby last night, like, one of our level designers, and he was saying, like, oh my god, this is just the beginning. We're all gonna go on adventures together after we have the Fallout London meetup. And I was like, I hope so, but I don't know.
We're all going on a holiday together.
We're all gonna go, like, explore the Amazon together. I think that's what he was getting at, but...
Only because he's wearing a pith helmet, he wants to go into the Amazon.
project on all of us.
Yeah. Now, of course, the latest big Fallout mod is Fallout the Frontier, which had a rocky start, to say the least, mainly due to the story. As a writer, did you learn anything from this? And if you did, like, what would you avoid or what would you follow in their footsteps?
The lizard dungeon. Honestly, like, we didn't really have content that needed to be scrapped. Everything in London is pretty blunt and consistent with the level of quote-unquote badness as vanilla Fallout. We did do an extensive comb through of our material after the Frontier came out, and it had a department-wide meeting to make sure everyone knew exactly what was going on in the story, not just writers, like everyone. And we had a final vote on literally everything in the mod to set in stone everything from the tiniest lore to the main storyline, to basically ensure that everything was safe, everyone was on board with the kind of content we were creating, and that in case like anything hit the fan, anyone tried to like quote unquote expose us for something, that we all knew exactly what was going on. Because I found that a problem with the Frontier that was that nobody really knew what the left hand was doing from the right. Like they didn't there are a lot of team members who came out and like, oh, I didn't know that so and so was doing this and this controversial material made into the mod. But you know, like I was watching TG Spy's interview and he had said that, and I thought, you know, like if Prill didn't know what I was doing as a writer, that would be really bad. So I have to make sure that everyone knows what I'm doing. Everyone knows what the writing team is doing, because if they don't and something comes out, we can't have people saying like on the mod like, oh my god, I didn't know that Siren was putting that in there. Like we have to all be like unified and say like, yes, we all stand behind the decision to put this in because we all felt that it was harmless and that it fit the Fallout canon.
Because I'm not gonna name like a specific thing. I remember there was a subject in Fallout Lawman which was kind of on the iffy side, to put it that way. And Prill was very passionate about that, while the rest of us, or not like all of us, but at least the big majority was more like, should we add that? And Prill kind of stood by his decision. To my understanding, he almost vetoed the vote. Like, I'm glad he still let the vote decide that it would stay in or out in that case. Has that ever happened before?
No, that was the first time actually, and the reason he was so insistent upon it was because that character was based on one of his friends who like agreed to it, and he kind of wanted to do it as like an homage to him, but that's why he was so like insistent upon it. But you know, the character I didn't feel was that contentious, but we were like, you know, given what happened with the Frontier, we can't even let anything that is mildly questionable make it into the mod. So yeah, and a lot of people think that because of my previous work that I'm gonna put like a lot of fucking romanceable characters in there. I haven't put a single one in there, to be honest. Like, it's not even a thing yet. That's not to say we won't have like romanceable followers, but like I haven't even done that yet. So, you know, it is what it is. I'm not trying to push my agenda on there or anything.
No. Now we talked about this a little bit earlier in the interview, where you are writing for your school right now and all that sort of stuff. And I understand that you have also entered somewhat of a competition where you won an award. How did that come to be?
Oh, yeah, I did actually. I'm a film major in my last year, and I'm making what's called my capstone project. And this is, at its core, a short film I write, direct, and produce. It's the biggest project you make in film school and is what you use as your calling card to get into the industry. So, I wrote a short screenplay for my capstone called Mute, which is about a 14-year-old savant with selective mutism who has to use her voice to defend her only friend when her most personal secret is leaked out into the school. I ended up submitting it to the Rome Independent Prisma Awards and received an official selection laurel, which, given the prestige of the festival, was like a huge thing. Like, I literally was running around telling everyone and screaming. It was something I submitted to for shits and giggles, much like how I got into NYU. Yeah. But I never expected to actually get that far. It seems like whenever I submit to something without expectations, I actually get it, whereas opposed to when I'm trying, I don't. I decided, since I got past the Big Fish, because that was like a big festival, I'd submit to the smaller ones as well. So I submitted to the Hollywood International Golden Age Festival and the Toronto Independent Film Festival of Clift. I'm currently a finalist for Toronto, and I won the Hollywood Festival in the Best Unproduced Short Screenplay category. So that's 2 more laurels. There's also a bunch more festivals I'm waiting to hear back from.
Did you win any cash prizes?
No, unfortunately, but just having the laurels is like really good because when I actually make the film and release it, you know how when like you're watching like a trailer for a film and it shows all those little things with like the little laurels around them and you think like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
that means it got somewhere. Like that's basically why I have them. So it kind of like validates your film to say like, hey, these people said it was good, so maybe I should watch it.
Right. Yeah. Now back to the whole modding scene.
Right.
As I'm sure you know and understand, the modding scene it's mostly made up from men. For example, you and Saffron are basically the only 2 females that I know of from the Fallout London team that frequently join the voice chat. Like every now and then, another female joins, but basically you are the only 2 that are on voice chat quite often. Would you say that being a female makes certain things easier or harder when trying to work on mods?
I'm not going to try to complain or sound whiny, but it makes things very hard. For one, it's always suggested that you charmed or slept your way to the top when you actually got there on your own merit. I guess it's just that preconception and that's what women do, and it's like, no, I actually did the work to get here. And also people assume that because I'm a woman I only know how to write and I don't know how to code, which is like, no, I actually do. And a lot of people subconsciously don't take you as seriously because you are a woman. Like, thankfully, our team isn't really like that. But I've definitely seen comments, like my interview with tk-mantis, for example. In the comments, I saw a guy saying, oh, the head writer is a woman. That's how we know it's going to be shit. So I just read that and I was like, oh, one of these.
Oh, right, yeah. You said, like... No, you go ahead.
Sorry. When I first started modding, a bunch of people on the Frontier server were shitting on me, despite me being a total newcomer, and saying that I was going to feminize their game, which is what I was talking about earlier. They were kind of like, saying that, oh my god, how could she do this to Joshua Graham? When I was just like, yes, the man actually getting into a relationship, being a romanceable companion, which is common in Fallout games, is suddenly a huge problem. Just because he's a man and not a woman. So I even had like incels on Twitter tell me that they didn't like me because of my Twitter handle, like my handle, after finding out I was the head writer of London. And I was just thinking like, I came up with that thing in 5 minutes, and I'm having people tell me that they have an issue with me because of it. I'm just bewildered.
Makes, no sense.
I've had men on Discord like threaten to rape me. I've been stalked by people so much that I had to contact the FBI. Like, it really hasn't been easy. There are times when it took such a toll on my mental health that I wanted to quit. But like, it's also flattering in a way, because knowing that people are so simple-minded, like, hate you is actually like a compliment. Because not to say that people can't have a good reason to hate me, because they absolutely can, but knowing that people hate me because I'm a woman or something just is like, okay, that actually makes me feel good about myself, because you clearly, you know, your dislike of me is actually a compliment. If someone can't see past the fact I was born with a double X chromosome, that's their problem.
Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense. I was gonna say something, but I completely forgot what it was.
Sorry for cutting you off. I was trying to get through my little blurb.
Yeah, no problem whatsoever. Alright, I don't know what I was gonna say, so I'll just continue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you said that things are harder, but I can imagine it also happens to go completely the other way, so people really like you for being a female. Like, some of the women online, I guess, for example on Twitch, they happen to have a lot of simps. So, like, do you have any simps or anything like that?
Oh, you know the answer to that question. Oh yeah, tons.
Tons, oodles of it.
Oodles, just an army. I'm one of the few women on the scene, and trust me, like, women in the Bethesda modding scene are already, like, seeing a unicorn. I'm one of the few who is open about how I look. Like, my profile picture is literally my face. I've posted many photos of myself in team chat, as has the rest of the team. We all we video chat, we all know what each other looks like.
Well, not me, I'm wearing a gas mask if I am on camera.
We have seen you. Generally, after seeing what I look like, or how, like, even hearing my voice, a lot of men start to treat me differently. Even going so far as, like, offer to buy me things, and I don't really mind it. Like, they're pretty harmless and actually quite nice, even if it's for an ulterior motive. Like, the simping thing, it generally is, like, the most harmless of the things, and actually it can be, it's, in a weird way, it's kind of nice sometimes to have people be nice to you. Even if I know it's like, oh, they're only doing it because I'm a chick, but, at the same, like, on the other hand, it's like, it's better than the other ones. So it's like, I'm picking my battles here. But, yeah, it's really not so bad. Like, I know some people hate being simped over, but it's really not that bad. It is what it is, as Doc Wilbius would say.
Yeah. On the other hand, I can imagine it can be somewhat dangerous at times. Like, sure, people that are, nice to you and positive about you and treat you well, that's always nice, obviously. But, some of these quote-unquote simps, they can lose control, because you also said earlier that, you had to contact the FBI because you had a stalker. So, like, don't you think it becomes dangerous at one point to, have these simps?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not really my first rodeo, because I've dealt with this in, like, outside of the modding scene, like, in my actual, I don't want to say real life, because this is part of my real life, but my, like, in-person life, like, I've dealt with this.
Yeah, you're not online life.
Yeah, like, my interpersonal life, I have dealt with this quite a bit, and, like, to a much more severe capacity. So I don't really, like, it's not that I don't care, because it does get to you at some points, but it's mostly just like, yeah, oh, this again, or this sort of thing. Like, I think a lot of women, especially women who are open about how they look on the internet, have to deal with this. I have a lot of friends who are like, there's some people, of course, who are like, oh, I don't know any woman who has as many simps and stalkers as you, and it's like, okay, yeah, but not everyone is as public as I am. Some people are more private, and, I always found that to be a very offensive thing, because it's like, okay, you're trying to put the blame on me because someone decided to stalk me, which is like, yeah, it's just, I hate that sort of attitude.
Yeah, it's not like you're, like, provoking it. Like, I've seen the pictures that you've put in Secret of Topic and all that sort of stuff. It's not like anything that you'll see on Twitch, for example, because that's just downright, like, fishing for simps and fishing for money. Like, that's not what you do. So, I think what those other, like, I don't know if they're friends or not, what they're saying, I don't think that's true at all. It's not like you're fishing for people that treat you well and all that.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, recently I hadn't been on voice chat for, like, about a week or so, and I came back and everyone was, like, asking, like, where have you been? And, like, it wasn't the same, and I was just kind of like, I was surprised, genuinely, because I was like, I thought, no one would actually notice, but, it's kind of like that close-knit, it's not really simping on our team, because it's like, we all are genuinely close-knit, so when someone doesn't come around for a while, we actually are like, what happened to them? Like,
yeah, obviously, of course.
So yeah, like, I won't deny that, there's definitely a lot of simping that goes on in chat, like, it happens, but, like, and Prill is obviously the first to point out, he's always like, simp.
Oh yeah.
Simp. He's a huge fucking simp himself, but, it is what it is. I just kind of am used to it, and I don't really mind it. At this point, I can't even tell what's someone being nice and what's someone simping, because it's just interchangeable for me.
Yeah, there's a very fine line between the two. yeah, we're getting at the end of the interview, so I'm gonna ask you a final question. Also, something a little bit more lighthearted, because that took quite of a dark turn at one point. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Now, there's a picture of you on the Fallout London team where you seem to have 2 pencils up your nose. My question is, quite simply, why?
I was actually video chatting with one of my best friends, and I did it just to amuse her. In terms of my personality, I'm like a total fucking nutcase. I basically told her I was one with the walrus energy, and stuck pencils up my nose and threw up gang signs. She grabbed a snippet of it, and then I sent it to Ropey, and it became a local meme. And now, like, everyone has the image of it. And one of our other teammates, Moose, has actually drawn comic art in which I have pencils up my nose. And it's become like a running gag, and it's even a server emoji. The sad thing is, it isn't even the first time I've done it. I'll do it again. Guys, just stop doing that. We do it on voice chat all the time. I started doing it in my personal life. Like, I found that the kind of shit that we say on voice chat with each other, like, it is what it is, and I'm sorry, but I just don't care, and I'll do it again. I started saying it to people in my personal life. I think I've even said a couple things at work. And people just look at me like, what are you talking about? I was just like,
we're just speaking in local memes now. Like, I'm pretty sure that at this point, like, you can just have an entire conversation just using all of the memes that we often talk about in the Fallout London chat. It's gone that, like, that out of, like, that overboard with all the memes.
Like, whenever someone says something, like, sketchy to me, I just think, alarm.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's kind of dominated my life, and, like, you know, as everyone always says on the team, like, this is just a hobby, but at some point it's, like, become more than a hobby, because, you know, we're all friends, and, like, we all spend so much time on it, because it definitely, like, saps up all of your free time when you work on it. Like, modding is such a... I didn't know this when I got into it. Like, when I first posted the Joshua Graham romance mod, I thought, this is something I can say when I play Two Truths and a Lie, to say I made a mod for Fallout New Vegas. Like, it was a one-time thing. I'm probably gonna just say, yeah, it's something I did and never came back to. But after it started to rack up, like, thousands of views and downloads, I was like, okay, maybe I should do more of this. And then I got invited to the Creators Network and came on Fallout in Miami, and then it was like, my life just kind of, like, changed from there. And to be quite honest, like, I'm eternally grateful for it, because, as I mentioned, like, I was pretty, physically in bad shape, and it actually gave me sort of, like, a purpose and, like, this opportunity to, like, do something greater. And I'm really, even though, you know, we don't get paid for it, we get, like, the only notoriety you get for it is in the modding scene, which is, like, not a large group of people. Maybe a couple million of the world's population at most, and not all of them are going to notice your mod. But, you know, you do it for yourself, and you do it because you enjoy it, and, like,
Yeah, just
there is
for
some...
fun.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry if I'm rambling, but there was something I had said to one of my fellow colleagues in film school. We were, like, it was 2 years ago, and we were, like, eating in a diner together, and I had said to her, like, you know, sometimes in film, I feel like I'm writing for the wrong audience, which is... In film, there's 2 audiences. There's the, like, artsy, pretentious, like, indie art house thing, and then there's the, like, big budget blockbuster films like Fast and Furious and stuff like that, which, like, is kind of the opposite, because clearly there's thought that goes into it, because you have to make it, like, sell to an audience, but it's kind of, like, considered lowbrow, so there's no middle way, and, like, the only audiences you can appeal to are either the artsy fartsy people or, like, the general average person. But for me, as someone who's been playing video games since I was 2 years old, I felt like I was trying to appeal to a crowd that just didn't